This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
All right, it is 6 p.m. I will now call to order the January 13th, 2025 meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. This meeting is being recorded. This meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission will be conducted in person and simultaneously via remote participation online to the greatest extent possible. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so despite best efforts, we will post on the City of Easthampton website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Should an interruption occur in which the online meeting ends abruptly, both the in-person and online meetings will not be restarted, and all agenda items will be automatically continued to the next scheduled meeting. Are there any public concerns, non-agenda items? Hearing none, we'll move on to our public hearings and meetings. The first item on the agenda is public hearing for abbreviated notice of resource area delineation filed by GZA Geoenvironmental on behalf of Crown Meadow Corporation at Holly Circle and Crestview Drive, map 166, lots 75 through 80, 83 through 89, and map 71, lots 14-1, 14-2, 15 through 22, and 25 through 29. This is Mass DEP file number 1510327. We have an update.
Yep. So the commission had an opportunity to review. We released an RFP that the commission had approved at a previous meeting, and the applicant had an opportunity to take a look at. And we released it to 14 forums, and we had 4 responses. And the commission's had those for a couple days. I'm going to project the RFP, but I also could project the different proposals one by one. There's also a hard copy right here. How would the commission like to proceed with this?
Have commissioners had a chance to review the proposals? Any initial comments or questions?
Not right now.
Ava, did you have any comments with regards to whether they all met scope, and did you have any concerns with any of them?
They seem to all meet scope as best as the RFP outlined it. Some of them did not calculate a total. Some of them calculated sort of like a pre-subsequent review price, and then also a post-subsequent review price. So they did. So I did calculate out the totals just so that we can discuss those if the commission wants to go run through those. But in terms of the actual substance of the proposals, they all seem to cover what was covered in the RFP.
Okay. Were you starting to say something? Did I cut you off?
I was just going to comment that the prices on 3 are very tight to each other, it seemed like.
Yeah, and was there, when you did your price comparison, is there anything we're missing with the fact that the SWCA proposal seems to be considerably more?
No, I wasn't sure why it was.
Okay.
But yeah, it seemed to be considerably more. Yeah, 7,000 without the second review, and then almost 9,000, 8,900 with the second review.
Okay. Yeah, and I had noticed the same thing. The other 3, I think, are all kind of hovering around 4,900 or 4,600 or something.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Did any jump out to any commissioners as preferential for any particular reason?
They all seem to present some level of experience. I think Goddard Engineering, they had some listed with a lot of experience. That might be mixed.
No, it was Goddard.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe the whole thing isn't here, but yeah, but I guess I don't really have an opinion otherwise. I don't have personal experience with any of the 3 of those firms, really. So Oh, yeah, that,
Yeah.
that person seemed to have a lot, many years of experience, so I'm not sure how much of it is doing permit review compared to like more ecological type of work. But anyway. So,
A low
low
cost.
cost makes sense.
Did you, Deb, it looks like you had some notes written down, anything that would add to that?
So with, Goddard, the person, Stephen Birdie, he's also a professional soil scientist. It says a lot about hydric soil analysis. Um, it just seemed like Dan was saying they have a lot of experience with that. But then I was reading as a beta. Um, they had some things too. Their person, Jonathan Nero, also does in-depth analysis of soils, and he's a professional wetland scientist. And SWCA didn't seem any different than the rest. You know, there was nothing that stood out. And Oxbow, they seem to have a lot of experience, but it seemed more like they specialized in reptiles, amphibians, and that sort of thing.
Mhm. And where do they, do you have the price comparison?
Yeah, so Goddard, their subsequent review is 3,800 and then 1,000 for the subsequent review, so 4,800. For Beta, theirs came in at 3,350 initially, but then 4,750 for the subsequent.
That was Beta.
Beta, yep. Oxbow, came in at 4,900 and that was just their overall price, including the second review. And then SWCA, as we said, was 7,000 without the second review and then 8,900 with the second review. So as the commission indicated, the three are really quite similar, and whether or not that second review is needed does determine which is actually the lowest price.
Yep. Yeah, because it switches to Goddard becomes the lowest, right?
Yeah,
The,
except,
or no,
oh,
Beta.
I guess actually Beta is the lowest in both cases, excuse me. Yep. But by $50.
I do think, given the characteristics of this site, that a firm understanding of soils is going to potentially be important to the delineation. So I think that is an important thing to note. I think on that note, I might be inclined to go with Goddard since the prices are within $50 anyways. Other thoughts?
I just had a question. So the DZA letter that they sent on 11/6/24, DEP had answered questions and asked questions, and number 3 said from DEP, a video taken from one end of the property to the other, as well as upstream and downstream off-site, would likely be the best way to document the lack of flow. Whoever we choose, can we also ask for this, for a video? Or is
I
that
think what
additional
was
cost?
included in the RFP was for them to review the evidence presented and determine if it was sufficient or not. Is that correct?
Okay.
How we wrote it?
I think a field review is included, but I don't think I think the field review of the wetlands of the BDW was included and of the flag locations, but not of the intermittent versus perennial piece of it, because that would have to be for additional visits.
Visits, right?
That would be additional.
One thing worth noting, I don't know I think, Steve has been working for other companies for several years now, but he was for a number of years a GZA employee. I don't think that's officially a conflict of interest, but it may be something to consider. He's probably reviewing materials put together by potentially former colleagues. Are we concerned with that?
We know how many years ago that was.
Yeah. It looks like,
It's like 21. He left in 21, I believe. 2021. Okay, great.
because he joined Goddard in 2022, but he had his own company for a few years. I don't remember. It was sometime during COVID, I think, that he left.
Yeah, it was 21. I used to work with him. Yeah, with Steve.
Okay.
I don't feel that strong if he didn't work.
Anybody else have opinions?
He's not working on this project, then it's fine.
So there's no conflict?
There wouldn't be an official conflict of interest, I think. Sorry, I forgot we had commissioners on the screen. Any
Yeah, I
thoughts?
think if I went through it, I think I picked Goddard first, Beta second, and Oxbow third.
Okay.
And I think I would pick Beta first and Goddard second, but it doesn't really matter. They all look pretty
They're pretty,
pretty
yeah, I think
close.
they're pretty close.
Yeah.
So I could go either way with that also.
I like the idea of picking somebody who has the more specific soil training.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
do think Goddard has a good reputation. We don't usually get submissions from them, but they're usually pretty strong in wetlands.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
Agreement?
Sounds fine.
Okay. Can we have a motion then?
So I will move that we award the contract to Goddard.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, Buttrick?
Aye.
August?
Aye.
Weeks?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Motion carries. So Ava, if you could go ahead and set that in motion to get the funds in escrow from the proponent and then get a contract in place. Sounds good. Great. I don't think there's anything further we need to look at on that particular hearing, is there?
I don't think so.
Okay. Can we have a motion then to continue? Do we have, what's the timeline for, should we continue to the next meeting or should we push it out further based on needing to get the review?
So the commission decided in the RFP to allow the consultant to set the spring hearing date for the peer review, depending on whether or not they believe they could do the review in the winter.
Okay.
I don't think any of the responses to the RFP
Address that.
address that. I imagine they will in their actual contract and their plan of work. So
Okay.
I can try to get a date from them when I start contracting with Goddard as to when they want to set that.
Yeah.
That
So
public
for the
hearing date too.
meantime, would you recommend we just continue to the next meeting and discuss that then?
That sounds good.
Okay. So that would be the 27th, correct?
Yeah.
Motion to continue this hearing to the 27th.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, Buttrick?
Aye.
August? Weeks?
Aye.
Ryan? Ryan?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, our next item is a public hearing for notice of intent filed by the Berkshire Design Group on behalf of the Community Builders Incorporated for a new housing development at 385 Main Street, map 154, lot 32-1. This is Mass DEP file number 1510330. We have an update on that item?
Yep. So we do have Jeff Squire from Berkshire Design Group here on the screen. I think he just went live. And we also have a request that came in this afternoon for a continuance. But I guess the update I want to provide before Jeff starts his piece is that we did release the RFP for stormwater plan review based on the most recent plan that we had received just before the holidays.
Right.
And so I had sent that already out to 8 firms, had received some interest, but no formal responses yet. So something I would recommend the commission decide at this meeting tonight is whether or not we want to rescind the RFP, or if we want to proceed, and select a consultant, select a peer reviewer, knowing that they'll probably have to be waiting for a new plan. So BDG got in contact with me late last week to say that they would like to continue this process, and that they'll have a revised plan from the plan that we received in late December.
Okay.
So that's the information I have for you, but I think Jeff may have more.
Good evening, Jeff Squire from the Berkshire Design Group here on behalf of the community builders. Yeah, I don't have too much more to add other than we anticipate there's going to be some plan changes coming. You know, there are a lot of other things going on in the background. So in response to, you know, some of the concerns that have been raised, we anticipate that there's going to be some design changes. So just want to provide enough time to, you know, both digest the design changes and is what needs to happen to, you know, to finalize a final submission. So yeah, just asking the continuance for the hearing until hopefully the beginning of April, which I don't know what that date is specifically, but I think we anticipate having enough time between now and then to work out what we need to and come up with a final plan.
And Jeff, are you assuming that those changes will include changes to the stormwater plan?
Oh, most certainly, yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like there wouldn't be any sense in continuing with the peer review. We would just be wasting their time and your money or your client's money. Is that accurate?
I think that's accurate, yes.
Okay. All right, then I think the appropriate thing to do would be to rescind, since how specific were we in the proposal with regards to what materials they'd be reviewing?
Yeah, let me pull it up.
If it's merely described as a plan, and we might be able to continue and select someone to have on deck, but.
Right. No, that's a great question. And it does actually bring to another point that I was hoping the commission would discuss tonight, which is whether we've received these 2 reviews by outside members of the public who are professionals in the field, that the commission, that they're categorized as public comments, but whether or not we are going to ask the peer reviewer to review those as part of the peer review process, because those were not mentioned. Well, one of them, right. The one we received in September based on the old plan was mentioned, but the 2 new ones that were received just this week were not mentioned. So let me pull up the RFP so we can just take a look at it together.
While you're doing that, does anybody recall, I know we had some significant public comment from an engineer on the Tasty Top project. Does anybody remember if we had that material provided to the peer reviewer, or if we just looked at it internally compared to the other comments we received from the peer reviewer? I know we provided them a lot of stuff, so I suspect they saw those.
Yeah, we probably provided access to it. Yeah. I don't know. I think what I would anticipate doing would be providing, you know, the comments that we've received to the peer reviewer, not necessarily ask them to comment on those additional reviews, but to maybe just consider them in their review or whatever, you know.
Right. That would be kind of my thought too, that they wouldn't respond to them directly, but they'd be part of the materials they should be looking over.
Yep.
Okay. I was just going to pull that one up from 93, 95 if we wanted to see.
And the September one is probably pretty moot at this point anyway.
Right. Because it was for a plan that's now been changed substantially.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it looks like for 93, 95, it looks like there was a review of all comments received by the commission and written responses by the applicant was
Okay.
one of the included items.
Yep.
And then viewing the recordings of a number of minutes in which public testimony was also given.
Yeah.
But here we are looking at the 385 Main Street peer review that I released on 1/6. And so this is the list right here. Or no, this is just the pieces of it, and then it's
What date? You said you released it on the 6th?
released on the 6th. Yep.
Okay. With what due date?
With the due date of the 22nd of January. But the commission, so those two reviews that we've received, the actual reviews themselves are like about 10 pages each, 8 to 10 pages each. But then they're very large PDFs because they're full of qualifications and articles that the professionals have written.
You're talking about, there's one that's more like, one's very specific to groundwater infiltration, I think, and then another one.
Yeah, and that one was written by a hydrogeologist, so not a professional engineer, a hydrogeologist. The other one was written by the same professional engineer who is in a butter to the project, who wrote the initial comment.
Yep.
So it is pretty non-specific here. Latest revised plan set, latest revised drainage report. That's, approximately, and then all comments received.
Yep. So I think our RFP is general enough that we could potentially move forward with it. What all did we have for dates in there?
Here, let's take a look. So these dates would need to be bumped back, but my understanding is that commission does that. That's not uncommon. Yep. So proposals with price by 1/22, and then the commission would make their choice at the next commission's meeting.
And then execution by the 6th.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a sense, Jeff, if we were to move forward with selection, would it be amenable to your client to put the funds into escrow at this point to secure that contract, or not?
I would be hesitant to commit to those funds just yet. I think there's still a couple of things that need to be figured out on their end before committing to that. It's probably not much more than a couple of weeks, but yeah, I think there's probably a few things that need to happen before they're ready to commit to those funds.
Okay. Thoughts from the commission, how to proceed? I think we could rescind the RFP. We could, it hasn't been out for very long, so I don't think too many people will have put a lot of effort into it yet, which is good.
Does it make sense to notice the potential bidders that we anticipate substantial changes in the plan that they're going to be asked to review? And does that, from their perspective, change the landscape that they would want to take a step back and rethink?
And or their timeline, since they might have other projects.
Right, that's the
Mhm.
bigger concern, I think, is whether they'll still be available and have the right staff available at the time that this would actually proceed. And so my thinking would be, at the very least, we would probably want to update the we could rescind it, we could update the due date and just push it out
Right.
to April or
April.
something.
Right.
I don't think there's any issue with that from a city procurement standpoint, but we'd want to confirm with the procurement officer. Or we could go ahead and make a selection, but also send a notice to let people know that we're anticipating this revised timeline. And so we could select them now and they'd be queued up, but it would be, the work itself would be pushed out further. I think those are probably our three options.
Yes.
Does it make sense to select them now if the stormwater plan that they would be reviewing might substantially change.
From what perspective?
From the perspective of if with the new stormwater plan, if that will require different staff, or if it will require a different amount of time to review it, or if it presents different challenges that they have specialties in or not.
I wouldn't anticipate that there'd be substantially different staff that they would put on an H&H review regardless of the specific content of the plan. So I don't think that's a major concern.
Okay.
I mean, would you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Any thoughts from a consulting perspective as to what would be amenable as a bidder here?
Yes, I guess I think it makes sense to just get everything queued up so that we're ready to go once we finally get the stormwater report. So we could like slacken the deadline, a little bit and let the issue like an addendum basically to our RFP saying, we now expect that these documents are going to be revised, won't be available for review until like April.
Yeah.
And then, but still, and we could extend the deadline a couple of weeks or however much we want. It's not going to matter that much. But if we know who the peer reviewer is before we get the materials, then it saves us a step in, doing things a little bit ahead of time.
I do think it would speed things up on the back end.
The commission can select a peer reviewer and just not sign a contract with them before the money is received.
I think if folks are in agreement, I think that makes sense.
I agree.
Yep.
How, in the addendum, I think it's probably worth noting how we want applicants to consider the engineering comments that we've received. That do we want to state it as, I don't know, do we want a verb like review, or do we want a verb that's in terms of the professional comments that we've received from?
I think we don't we don't think they need to go with a point by point, rebuttal or agreement or whatever. I don't think, but I think we say, I keep coming back to the word review. That's not right.
Well, it already says should review of the following at a minimum, and then at the bottom, doesn't it say?
Yeah, here's where it says all comments received. But those are just the clients.
So under D, it says review of all comments received by the commission regarding the project, primarily a multiple page document of stormwater system comments by a PE hired by neighbors of this parcel. I mean, I think we've got that pretty well covered.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's that.
Yeah, I don't think that needs to be further addressed.
Yeah.
Okay, and so it'll now be, but the addendum will be this PE as well as the other professional who we received the comments from.
Right.
Okay. Great. I do have a couple of public comments that I just wanted to read about from 385 as well. So I received some paper comments. They are in the file if you want to see them, but I was also just going to read them into the record. So this one is from MJ Pagnoni from 79 Torrey Street. To the Easthampton Conservation Commission, attention 385 Main Street. Please look at the following closely. The developer's proposal to keep our water clean according to the Clean Waterways and Act. Also, I'm concerned about the Clean Water Act. I'm concerned about the units proposed on or near 385 on or near Main Street in Easthampton. We need a functional stormwater plan. Sincerely, PJ Pagnoni. And then received a couple. Gail Herman, 11 Russell Lane, to the Conservation Commission, please look closely at what the developer is proposing to keep our waters clean according to the Clean Waterways and Wetlands Clean and Wetlands Clear Water or Clean Water Act. I'm also very concerned with the 87 units proposed on and near Main Street. I'm also concerned about the man killed near and on Main Street in Easthampton. We need a functional stormwater plan. Sincerely, Gail Herman, PhD. Never doubt that a small band of dedicated citizens can make a difference. And lastly, this one I did my best with the handwriting. Says something along the lines of Janet McNabb from 10 Russell Ave, Conservation Commission, 385 Main Street, Hasty Top, Finance Committee. I think that's, yeah, compliance with regulations, comply with the Clean Water Act, 3 buildings, 87 units, building 40 plus, need a functional stormwater plan, do not approve tax money for developer, do not approve funds to developer.
Okay.
And those are the comments I've received.
Thank you, Ava. All right. I'm sure we'll continue to receive comments on this as it moves forward. We'll amend or addend. I'm not sure if that's a verb. We will issue an addendum for the RFP to let folks know that that's going to be extended, and that we anticipate actual review happening more along the lines of April. And I think because we're still going to be reviewing those, we'll want to continue to a nearer date than the April date, but we can note that other than reading in any additional comments that may be received in the interim, that meeting would, we wouldn't really have further discussion of the project since we're still waiting on adjusted plans. We'd really just be looking at the proposals that come in. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so the original date on that due date was the 7th? No.
Was the 22nd, was the
Okay.
original RFP receival date, with the 27th being the meeting. The commissioners want to give reviewers more time than
I
that.
think we might as well.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no reason not to at this point. So maybe we'll continue for 2 meetings out to our
Okay.
February meeting.
Yep.
That makes sense to folks?
The first February meeting is February 10th.
Okay. Can we have a motion to that effect?
Motion to continue to February 10th.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, Buttrick?
Aye.
August? Weeks?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Say Ryan?
That's you.
Aye. You're breaking up, that's all.
I know it's sometimes hard to hear on the screen.
Right.
Motion carries. Great, thank you. Moving on to request for certificates of compliance. Easthampton Park Solar 1 LLC, 232 Park Street. This is Mass DEP file number 151293.
They're requesting a continuance to the next meeting.
All right, can we have a motion to continue to January 27th?
I move that we appoint Easthampton Park Solar to, I'm sorry, January 27th, did we say? Thank you.
Yes.
All those in favor, Buttrick?
Aye.
August? Week?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
John J.
Carr?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Sorry, I keep switching up the order on you guys. All right, updates on enforcement actions. Ava, which ones do we need to discuss?
We need to discuss New England Forestry Foundation, just to give the commission an update on that, as well as 126 Love Field.
Okay.
So we'll start with New England Forestry Foundation. Figured Commissioner Booth and I can kind of tag team this. We met with them on the 17th. We met with the attorney and with Beth Kula, their stewardship manager of the particular parcel of Hartnett Manham Memorial Forest. And they clarified what their goal is with the parcel, and really expressed that their main goal is to keep people out of the area where people have been digging, and prevent further digging. So they fully posted the area as no trespassing and done a pretty substantial brush in with a lot of materials to close off access. Though they are keeping the other access point to the conservation area open on Mineral Street, which had been temporarily closed during the foresting, during the active harvest of the parcel, but is now, the harvest is complete, and they reopened that access point on Mineral Street. And that access point allows people to get into the other side of the parcel, the other side of the river, kind of downstream or upstream of, do you know that Mineral Street access point?
It gives you full access just on the other bank, that's all. And there is significant digging over there too.
Right. I think that they plan to have it pretty well signed at that juncture point. I have not actually checked the signs on the other side of the river. But the access point from Loudville is pretty closed off from my perception.
Yeah.
And New England Forestry Foundation plans to do some plantings this spring on the degraded hillside, as well as an erosion shade seed mix. But prior to doing that, they're going to file an RDA with the commission to do those plantings. And through the process, grant the commission access to the parcel, and arrange for quarterly reports with the commission on the state of the erosion, and whether or not there has been any increased digging on the parcel.
So we agreed that they've made a good effort and seem to have shut down the access to comply with the cease and desist that we issued relative to the ongoing digging that was considered a violation, and agreed in our discussions that it seemed reasonable that what they wanted to propose as additional activities could be most likely permitted under an RDA, since it would be a pretty minor disturbance associated with planting. And we were talking mostly plugs and seeds, so nothing, not any substantial soil disturbance. And then we kind of discussed an ongoing communication and monitoring strategy to make sure that the other concern associated with the existing impacts would be erosion of any of those. And so monitoring to determine if anything else would be needed in the future. And so we kind of left that meeting with them with the understanding that they would submit an RDA, and based on the compliance with our initial enforcement order, that we could consider that matter closed. We were anticipating that would all line up timing-wise to happen today. Do we know why they weren't able to submit yet?
With the holiday schedule, so I have an RDA in hand, but it was not submitted with the proper time to be on today's agenda. So it'll be on the 27th agenda with a legal notice.
So I guess we can decide whether we're comfortable going ahead and closing the enforcement order based on the fact that they have already complied and shut down access on the site, or if we want to wait to see that RDA come in.
Sounds like we've got what we wanted, which was activity and
Right.
an effort to solve the problem. So I'm fine with rescinding the enforcement order personally.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it's time to rescind the order.
All right, great. And I agree. I think we had a very productive conversation about how to be in better communication with them going forward. And I think they have good suggestions as to how to improve beyond what we had required in the enforcement order. So I'll be happy to entertain that when it comes in as a proposal. Do we have a motion then to close that out?
I will move that we close the enforcement order with New England Forestry Foundation.
Do we have a second? All those in favor, Buttrick?
Aye.
August?
Aye.
Weeks?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Moving on then to 126 Lovefield Street.
So Commissioner Weeks, Commissioner Ryan, and I visited the property on the 30th. I'm gonna go ahead and project some images from our site visit. We met with Eric and his son. 1 second.
This was one with the storage of
Yeah,
materials closer to the, right?
Exactly. So just to review for the commission, this was not a formal enforcement order. We issued a cease and desist to them in early December, I want to say, or maybe in late November. And they had been responding relatively quickly, and we had scheduled this meeting to go out and essentially figure out where the buffer zone ended on their property so they could have a visual of that. Okay, 126 Lovefield. This was the site visit. Okay, so here's an image of the resource area. So this is from like in the resource area, kind of looking out. They have a culvert here, a collapsing culvert right there, where they have this road that goes over the resource area, and this is the culvert that goes under it. That's what the resource area looks like. We saw some images of it from a neighbor at a previous meeting, and you can see some of the materials that they have on the edge here. So this is looking, so the resource area is back here. So we discussed these carports because that was a conversation that we had with them. And we specifically spoke about if they wanted to leave those carports or build carports in the buffer zone, that would be something they should file an RDA with the commission. So we talked about what that would look like. Otherwise, these carports are definitively within the buffer zone. The buffer zone here goes to about right here. Okay. With the resource area back here. So that leaves a substantial portion of their yard that's out of the buffer zone. That we spoke about being a good location for a lot of their materials. The other side of the river, or the other side of the stream, mostly, so here we are on the other side looking back. Most of the other side of the cleared area on the other side was within the buffer zone. So we suggested that they move the materials back. Beyond the buffer zone line was mostly woods. And this is just what the larger of the carports is. Here we are still within the buffer zone here, but back on the other side, the Lovefield Street side of the property. And that, like right here, is where the buffer zone ends.
And what was the response?
They seemed willing. Yeah, they seemed willing, and like they understood. And you know, we asked them to do it in the next couple of months, knowing that a lot of their yard on the day we were out there was pretty mucky because it had just rained a bunch and the ground wasn't frozen. And so, you know, they were like, well, we can't be moving stuff around right now. And so we said, you know, in the next couple of months to move the materials. Okay. And they seemed pretty willing.
I agree. I got the sense that they were willing to cooperate with us.
Okay. So it sounds like the follow-up is to check in a couple months.
Exactly. Yep. Check in in the warm season. Get them a visit. Send an email.
Okay. Is everybody comfortable with that?
Yep.
All right.
Did they say, are they going to move the carports?
They will move the carports or they'll file an RDA. Has the commission entertained RDAs before for actions that have already occurred in that way? Like if they didn't want to move the carports?
I can't think of an instance where we have.
Me neither.
I mean, you can certainly do that if you issue a formal enforcement order and then require them to file for the work.
Right.
So I think we could get at it. I mean, it's the same result.
Right.
So it might be worth checking with Mark Stinson, but I don't see any particular reason why that would be.
I didn't get the sense that they were going to. Did you get a sense about that, Commissioner Ryan or Commissioner Weeks?
No, I don't think they had a decision at that point.
Okay. Check with Mark if they decide to, what the procedure is.
So would we just keep it on the agenda until this, for a couple months and, but
Yeah.
not really speak about it again until the spring?
Right.
Was good to me.
Right. Okay. A minute to catch up with your notes. So. Moving on to open space updates. I know we have folks here to talk about Orchowski parcel. Do we have updates on either of the other items?
We don't.
Okay. Great. Ava, do you want to introduce this discussion, or should we just have folks introduce themselves?
Yeah, I'll just lay a little bit of the groundwork and say that I met with some mountain bikers in our community a number of months ago at this point about Borchowski parcel, which is a parcel that kind of goes up the side of Mount Tom from Hendrick Street up towards 141. And this is a parcel that the Easthampton Conservation Commission is the owner of in fee. There's no conservation restriction on the property. It was acquired in 1999 amid big public discussion in 1999. And it's about 70 acres, I think, the actual Borchowski parcel itself, but when people speak about it, they're referring to a whole chunk, which is a couple different parcels. And Cassie made a great map before she left where she highlighted the different ownership of several of the parcels. So those are all things for the commission to consider. But just a reminder to the commission that the commission is the owner of this parcel. So we're here today to brainstorm and to think about possible usages or to think about the current use of the parcel. Very little of the parcel is in jurisdictional resource area. There's a couple intermittent streams that flow through the parcel. There's Broad Brook at the bottom of the parcel, which is a perennial stream. And there's like one small pond and a couple pieces of BVW along their intermittent streams. A lot of the parcel is in natural heritage polygons, which I do think was a key reason that the parcel was conserved back in the 90s for its natural resource. It's endangered and threatened species prominence. So that's the background I have, and we have Scott Smith.
Yeah, I don't know if I should stand up or whatever, but my name's Scott. I'm with NEMBA, so I just wanted to come in and yeah, we ride out there all the time, so a couple of mountain bikers here too, and we love the trails, but we do realize that there's a lot of endangered species in that parcel, and there's a lot of, unfortunately, some illegal trail building going on. So what we want to do is kind of help out and manage the property, because we see that there doesn't seem to be much management at all up in that area. So we want to kind of work with the Conservation Commission through NEMBA to kind of help make it a sustainable resource for the whole community, not ruin anything, make sure we're, doing everything by the book. So if you want to go to the next slide, I just put together a quick presentation kind of explaining what NEMBA is for anyone who doesn't know, and then roughly what we're looking to do as far as helping in that parcel area. So real mini background on NEMBA. It's a 501c3. A lot of professional trail building has been done throughout the community here. We are just a chapter of a larger organization. So NEMBA's throughout all of New England. There's about 34 chapters throughout the whole New England region, so we're just one of them. Again, committed to advocacy and community, collaborating with the local governments and legislation and landowners to improve, it got cut off, but to improve everyone's experience out in the woods. So that's a little bit about us, just a snippet. And then so to go down a little bit here. So B parcel, this is just what we've seen. They're really old trails. I actually we've been discussing, do we know who actually built the trails? I don't even know.
Yeah, I mean, some of the trails I think predated the city's ownership.
Yeah, so
there was like some wide trails, some of the old.
So a lot of horseback riding.
Yeah.
In there, in the.
Not so much anymore, but I think there was.
There's signs that prevent it, which is unfortunate.
Is it prevented? I thought it was still allowed.
I don't know if I haven't.
Check on that. That's a good point, though. I haven't seen any, but But anyway, so there's some illegal trail building going on. No maintenance, no trail maintenance is going on other than the creation of new trails from what we've seen, which again is not, no one's allowing it. So I don't, you know, people are going up there and doing whatever. And it's a great opportunity for the city to get behind the trail system, and we can go. I just wanted to kind of have a short meeting, keep it brief on what we're going to do, but to dive deeper, the economic benefits of a mountain bike trail system in communities is huge, and we can bring in case studies to show that too, maybe at a different time. But so then going down a little more, this is just what I've seen on my rides, and this is the existing loop. Kind of hard to tell without zooming in a lot, but the trail's just gotten, this was a single track trail, and it's just gotten very wide. A lot of routes. It's built in a way that water just runs down, and you can see there's kind of like somebody did come in, so maybe minimal trail maintenance. Somebody did try to build a little water drainage right there, but you can see this trail, this rut is probably 6 inches deep, and it's very difficult to even walk some of this stuff with the amount of roots and just kind of undulating mess of trails. And that's just the existing loop. That's not even the new whatever these people are building in the woods there. So it's clear that it needs kind of a refresh, right? Like just to be able to be used by everyone up there, not just bikers. We come from the biking side, but we understand everybody's out there, you know, dog walkers, runners, bikers and whatnot. So and then to just finish it up, this is how we can help. I don't know if people are familiar with the DCR grant trail, but there was an access point from that water plant. That's the name of it, right? It's a water plant. I don't know. That got kind of, oh yeah, the pump. Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The pump station. That got kind of ruined in the microburst, but if we can go in and reopen it, it would just create a much better access point, or just another access point to stop using the easement next to the guy's house so much, kind of, because that's also pretty eroded too, and I'm sure he doesn't love it. But so yeah, we would just come in after the necessary studies are done. Again, some of them were done, some of them need to be done. We can go over that, but not totally sure. We designed just a multi-use loop for hikers, runners, walkers that's professionally built and maintained by our organization, NEMBA. This is all a lot of volunteer work and grant writing to get any necessary funding, and then to monitor and prevent any unsanctioned trail building. And the little footnote there, we do this just by actively engaging the community, right? So we're up there all the time. I myself ride there quite a bit, and I'm in touch with the community. If I see anything, I say something. It's kind of like that through our whole little network. So it would be much easier to put an end to something if we have an organized, well-built, established system there, if that makes sense. So, and then the last part is just the permission. So funding, we're not coming and asking for money. We don't need, you know, millions of dollars to do anything like that, but we do need permission, access, working together with the group here to just know what we can and can't do and what's okay and what's not. We can, you know, secure any funding needed through grant writing, like I said, and fundraising efforts that we do now already. So yeah, that's the whole, try to keep it short. Thank you for being here, everyone, and letting me take your time. So that's where we're at now. So yeah.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
Just another piece of backstory. I know the commission's discussed this before, but there was a proposal back in 2020, a plan to do a loop, kind of like Scott is describing, that there was a Mass Trails grant applied for and not received at that time. So that's why the commission has there's about just shy of $20,000 still in an account for this parcel as secured by the CPA around that time period as matching funds to what was hoped to be the Mass Trails grant. But the CPA funds weren't written in such a way, they're still accessible even though the Mass Trails grant wasn't gotten.
Right.
And I think the Mass Trails grant was for a substantial amount of money, for like $150,000. And the idea was that they were going to hire a professional trail builder. That was going to be the bulk of it. That was going to be like 80,000 of it.
Yeah, and so I think that one of the biggest problems back then too is the person that started making headway and everything, they didn't bring in NEMBA, and that was really kind of too bad at that time. I wasn't involved in NEMBA at that time, But NEMBA would really, that $80,000, it's not necessary. You know, we have the professional trail building capabilities for much less money. And then the maintenance and the upkeep and sustainability of the parcel, I don't think there was a plan in place for that, which obviously would lead people to be a little hesitant. Like, okay, who's upkeeping this? Who's managing this? We're not, you know, we don't have a Easthampton land like DCR people to go up there and make sure everything's, you know, being done correctly, which is what NEMBA would come in and do. And there are case studies for that. We do it right now in a lot of trail systems within the Pioneer Valley. So I think that's a couple, just to add, that's a couple of reasons why I think it kind of fizzled back then.
Right.
So
I think also that Mass Trails was concerned about the natural heritage permitting piece of it, but I think Scott's right. I think it really did fizzle. It was only applied for once. It was not like reapplied for with additional resources. A couple other things that just might be of note to the commission about it. There's like a number of places I think on the parcel that could really use a bog bridge or something small going over intermittent streams.
Yeah, a lot of little things like
And this would probably be a large project, but the bridge that crosses Broad Brook is
the bottom there. Yeah,
definitely getting towards the end of its life. I wouldn't say it's quite there yet, but right now that's the only. My understanding is that's the only legal, or that's the only technical road access to the parcel.
so technically, yeah, that old DCR grant trail would be the other one if you can hike over the logs and whatnot to get through to it. But it is pretty rough going. But yeah, you're right. Right now, technically, yes, the only legal way is through the easement.
Which is right down here.
Yeah.
So typically what my understanding is what people do is they park on Bernie Ave and then cross the road here. And there's a sign.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they just ride there on the streets.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that happens quite a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Where is that? I'm not familiar with the other access. Where is that, Scott?
Yeah, so there's there's this DCR grant trail. It goes from the pump station parking area in the woods up and around this parcel, and then connects into the trails. But it does actually go by this vernal pool too, which I think was it was like there from a really long time ago. So, but I think if we were to rebuild it, we would avoid obviously the vernal pool, but there is a trail that goes up and over and into there, which again would just make a better access point, because right now you have to get all the way down to here and climb up. So it would allow you to get into Nonotuck a little easier too, because Nonotuck is right here. You go through the neighborhood and then into the trails that way. There have been discussions, I haven't been part of them. There's been some discussions of people going in from the log cabin, and I've been told that the owners are okay with that. Again, that's all word of mouth. I haven't been in those conversations, but from his parking lot or their parking lot from the back corner there, you can go across the top of this ridge and into the B parcel kind of network there.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
Yeah.
At least a few years ago, that was happening.
Yeah, and I think, luckily they've been okay with it, but I'd love to get something in writing or, that can always change at the drop of a hat. We've been really respectful users for the most part, but it's not, it's one of those unwritten things where it's like, okay, but don't cause a problem. So
Parking is definitely a challenge for this parcel, is my sense of it.
Yeah.
I did have an opportunity to talk to Greg, the director of DPW, just about what the access points around from the pump house look like. And there's a gate there that's closed at the end of the day. And my understanding is that he, based on the restrictions around what that pump house, the role that pump house serves, those gates can't stay open. That can't be like a public parking lot. I think, he knows people ride through there, and didn't have a lot of concern with that. But from a parking perspective, it's not a great.
yeah, I have seen people parking outside of those gates before, but not a lot. It's like a car can fit without being in the way, but.
Does NEMBA have experience with the permitting side of things, or is that something we would need to support you on?
No, for sure. We're kind of turnkey solution. I mean, we've done it all. So we can get any necessary permitting, going through any necessary channels to, like the endangered species,
Yeah.
getting those tests. Some of them have been done already though, so we just
Yeah.
gotta understand what's left to do to take over, but
Yeah, and a big part of that process is just coordination with Natural Heritage to come up with a plan and reach an agreement. There's not really a formal, there's not necessarily a formal permit that they issue, but we may need to have a habitat management plan approved with them.
Yeah.
And that's sort of can be a kind of a lengthy back and forth. It just needs somebody that's committed to working through those conversations and working out the details to come to an agreement. I don't know, they generally don't share, well, not generally, they don't share publicly information about what the species are of concern, because that's, you don't want people going out looking for them and harvesting something.
I see.
So I don't know what the species are in there. That's something that would have to come out in those conversations. So we understood what the needs were, but I would assume it's something that we could work with. Especially since there's already existing trails that we'd be looking to improve upon.
And they did file with Natural Heritage back in 2021. And they did get an Oxbow Associates rare species evaluation done.
Okay.
So that is, that's certainly the place to start. 2022, they worked with GZA to do that.
Okay.
And they had a sketch of the wetlands done on the parcel, but not a formal delineation.
Okay.
I'll also just say that, this was, I think, part of the vision when they shifted Cassie's formerly Cassie's role into my role, that there would be more of an open space component of my role. So I do see that as something that I can really, that I could actively support.
Yeah.
NEMBA in if we work with NEMBA as the project partners.
Right. Right. Yeah. And this whole conversation really started because we were made aware that we had this CPA money sitting in an account to use. And I kind of suggested that, I think that the conservation community and mountain bikers often butt heads, but I don't think there's any reason to. And I suggested that, I can personally vouch for Scott and two of the other folks on the call here, that, I know you guys want to do things the right way. And I think if we work together on this, that you can be an asset to controlling and helping to both do maintenance, but also to control some of the activity that is not beneficial to the land and that is causing some of the problems.
Right.
And you can have a lot bigger impact on that, I think, than we can sitting here and not being out there, seeing what's happening and encountering folks and not having the sort of relationships that you have. So I suggested that those funds that we have sitting there may go a lot further if we have volunteer labor, and we may be able to actually do something with this without having to wait around to get a big grant. So I'm fully in favor of continuing this conversation and seeing what we can come up with for a plan. I would love to see something. We also have been on the commission now, I think 9 years, and we have had very little time and capacity to work on open space projects. So having partners who can help us to maintain some of our properties is huge.
Yeah.
And I think this could be a really cool kind of pilot for that.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Ben Jankowski, Western Mass Timber, along with Kate Scott. We've also set up MOUs with Hadley and Northampton just in the past year. Those have been incredibly helpful for working on conservation areas along the Holyoke Range and in Sawmill Hills Conservation Area in Northampton. If that's something that would be helpful in this process, we have that experience.
Yeah, I think it probably would.
Yeah, I was wondering what because I know NEMBA's, I've been on this commission since 2007, and that was the relationship between this commission and NEMBA informally at this parcel was ongoing when I started, and, I know like one or two names that used to bandy about 20 years ago, almost at this point, but I don't know if those people are still involved, so it would be nice to have like a formal, relationship.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head. There's always been kind of like this, finger, like, don't talk about it sort of thing, but it does open the door for a lot of things that don't make sense, like the illegal trail building that's going on or starting to go on. That's not that helpful. So we don't really need that. But we do need an updated, 2025 professionally done trail building system. And just to be upfront about it, that is a mini excavator. You know, that's how these communities are doing it. They're going in, and it's still single track. The machines are really cool if you're not familiar, but they're very tiny. But that is how we cut down a lot of those volunteer labor hours. You can go in there, get everything you need to do done. Obviously, you know, being cautious about any endangered wildlife or species or anything like that, just figuring out and plotting the loop beforehand. But that allows us to build a trail that's, you know, very sustainable, very easy to maintain, and then also appeals to everyone in the community. So there's not that illegal trail building and whatnot. So anyways, that's a little more to it, but yeah.
I know for a while there was evidence of motorbikes in there. Is that still an ongoing issue?
I haven't seen any like motorized use, except for I think the DCR goes in there with a 4x4 to set up trail cameras. I don't know who's doing that. Did we say is DCR doing that? Or
I don't know. I've certainly seen the trail cameras in there.
Trail cameras up there, and I think they go up and check them with a 4x4, but it's rare that I see the those tracks. So as far as dirt bikes or like electric dirt bikes or anything like that, I don't see any of that up there. So yeah,
there are a few. So my name's Steven. I live on Hendrick Street, right by the trailhead. There have been a few. I kind of monitor because I live here. I'm out there every day. Been a couple of four-wheelers just from properties that abut the conservation, and I've seen one dirt bike back there. But honestly, the the worst of it has been people going back there and leaf blowing the trails in the fall. So for what it's worth.
And is the leaf blowing, is that runners? Is that mountain bikers?
I would have to say it's probably mountain bikers.
Yeah, it's mountain bikers. Yeah, I've actually confronted one and asked them not to do that in the past. But well, I just went out of town and came back and it was done again. So I considered making some handmade signs, but I knew that really wouldn't do anything. So.
Yeah, I'm so curious how NEMBA, I like the idea of creating a whole new trail system and then keeping it up. But in the meantime, how would NEMBA go about stopping the illegal trails that are being leaf blown and dug up now?
That's a very good question. So if there's no plan in place to improve the parcel for recreating a good multi-use system, it would be very hard, because that's kind of the give and take, where it's like, we're going to go in and make you something really nice that everybody can be happy with, and if I catch you building illegal trails, like the community is not going to be very happy. And so that's kind of the back and forth. If there was nothing though to kind of look forward to or have for them to use, I do think they would continue building illegal trails, because their thought process would probably be, well, I'm just going to do this anyways because nothing is happening on this land, so I might as well go up and do whatever I want. And I think that's what we're seeing right now.
I think it's also hard, like, there's hardly any trail blazes and there's no trail signs out there, right?
No.
So I think the lines between what is an approved usage or what's an approved trail, what's a designated trail, and what's a social trail, or just, an illegal trail. Even I would say all trails and Strava, none of these have all the trails that you'll find on them.
Yeah.
The trails are incorrect. So I do think, a good step in the interim too could be a comprehensive trail map, or at least a trail map of the trails that we actually want people to be on, both
definitely.
for hiking and for mountain biking.
Yeah, we would strongly encourage that, and we would help develop that. It's like exactly what Ava said, actual trail map and signage and almost kiosks as well at, in a location or two that makes sense. But the other thing I think is people don't know that they're not supposed to be doing it. I think they're like, oh, it's open space that I can recreate, so why should I, not be able to do this? And they just do it. So NEMBA hasn't been involved in this parcel yet. We're just getting involved now. So we are starting to prevent any illegal trail building moving forward, but we just haven't in the past. We haven't been involved in this particular area, so. Yeah.
And this is the most recent management plan I've seen for Borchowski. I mean, there was the application, the Max Trails grant application, which was pretty comprehensive, but this is from when the parcel was acquired in 2000. And so I also think it could be useful for the commission just to maybe have, you know, it doesn't necessarily need to be as detailed as this or as comprehensive, but just like a sense, just a document outlining usage of the parcel, because a lot of this is incorrect, obviously.
I did note right at the very beginning, it says this is an interim plan, so clearly we were
sure.
supposed to update it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and I do think it's interesting. Snowmobile.
Got the horse riders right there.
Great.
Yeah, and snowmobilers. Do you guys ever see snowmobilers out there?
There's not enough snow.
Not enough
so
snow,
personally, I haven't ever seen it. The trails are a little tight, and the other thing about that parcel for a snowmobile is there's nowhere really to go. Usually snowmobiles, the vast trail system and stuff, they'll connect, because you can cover a lot of ground on a snowmobile. But if you go in there, there's nowhere really to go. So
There's only 4 access points that you could get a snowmobile in currently to that property. 2 of them come in from adjacent properties. They're all private property that goes in, and 1 easement up top that's actually in Holyoke. Two of them are actually in Holyoke. But no snowmobiles do not go back there anymore.
I mean, just it used to be when there was enough property that people could snowmobile all the way downtown and then come back and go up the mountain and, you know, go up into the state park and whatnot, but there's just too much building now that can't happen.
Yeah.
One of the positives of bringing in NIMBA, putting in signage, putting in kiosk, develops a relationship with more users aware of the designation and aware of the restrictions. And then what we've seen in communities across the country is that those communities start self-policing. And I mean, you guys know from the conservation side, you know, avid people in the area want to use it and they take pride in it. And when they know that there are rules set in place, the community does a really good job of kind of taking care of itself. And so with the backing of somebody like NIMBA, I mean, we could really do a lot of good in that area and keep a lot of that from getting developed anymore. And from my point of view, we don't need more trails. We don't need new trails in that system. What we need is the permission to maintain what is there and reverse some of the damage that's being done or has been done, more or less from construction or from just inactivity.
Stephen, does that look like a new trail, though, replacing some of the trails, or do you think that looks like prioritizing specific trails that are in the best shape and adding improvements to those?
Yeah, so there's actually a really good, there's actually a really solid system in there, and some of those trails have been in there for 30 plus years. Some of it have been built off of previous snowmobile trails or four-wheeler trails, and even some connected from old logging trails. So a lot of it got reworked post microburst. There's a whole climbing trail that goes up that was new, put in after that. But before that, there were actually trail signs, or at least there were blazes. All those blazes are deteriorated now. So from my point of view, and I spend a lot of time out there mapping, checking in on things, really putting a focus on rerouting a couple of sections on those trails, just a pretty limited section, doing a little bit of facelifting on a few sections of it. Scott put some good photos in there. I've been up and done a lot of work in there, just kind of keeping erosion from happening. Bridge building, we do need 3 bridges right now. The main bridge needs to get rebuilt. It's missing railing. Yep. So a tree fell on that. That's been missing for some time. I've got a 2x4 in my garage that I keep meaning to go over there and put up. After that, there is a creek crossing that goes into a pretty steep embankment, and that needs to be covered. We need a bridge for that, small. And then there's one up top and a few wet spots that kind of need to be assessed. And we have volunteers like Al Donahue. We've built a lot of different bridges and structures. We have a lot of carpenters and builders in this area that want to donate time. If we can get materials, it can all be volunteer done.
Do y'all have any sense of a timeline?
Sarah, before we answer that, I know Garrett's been waiting to make a comment for a bit.
Yeah, so just to prove how old I am, I worked on the acquisition. My memory's a little hazy, I don't know. I'm really happy to have Nemba involved. Whenever we're talking about building pedestrian trails, in places where there's been issues with misuse, one of the arguments I make is that the more legitimate users you have that care about this place, the less of the other stuff you have.
Yeah.
To some point. On the caution side, I do think that you want to start with the habitat side of it, so that you know you're not improving a trail that's going to, Natural Heritage is going to say, "Oh God, you hardened that trail." And then my third comment, which is a much more positive one, is that as your ambition to be better landowners as a conservation commission and as a city, I think this would be a great stimulus to have your energy and the ancillary things that you were talking about in terms of permitting and being able to work on natural heritage and all that stuff. So you have some energy and potential funding for signage and the kiosks and interpretive things about, like, this is great habitat, not just for you, but also for other critters. So it could be a really visible, positive step for the city with a great boost.
Yeah.
I don't know what other, the horseback riding was mentioned. I think you do, to get a really full investment from the neighbors and from the community at large, you want to make sure that you're talking to all the people that are interested or potentially interested in using that. And hopefully it won't be so many people that say, "Oh God."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Garrett.
Thank you.
So Sarah had asked about timeline. It seems like if we're interested in moving forward with this, I do think some sort of MOU to establish a formal relationship would be a good idea to get started. And then, as Garrett suggested, I think the natural heritage conversation starting sooner than later is really important. And that can be a lengthy conversation, so I don't have a good answer to what that timeline might look like. I think that's going to be a big driver in that. But as far as your side and availability and time, what would you project?
Yeah, I think it does, like Garrett was saying, I think it starts with the natural heritage and understanding what's out there and when we can work and what we can do for work and where we can work, right? So we're not trying to go up in there and build trails rogue like everywhere. So we do want to identify, where a trail system makes sense and actually map out a good multi-use, like I had in one of my slides, map out a good multi-use system for everyone that wants to be up there, including the horseback riders. And then, we would be working with the National Heritage to figure out where that would be. And then we would develop those routes and then probably present that to you and get the yay or nay on it. Like that pun. So, you know, figure out what makes sense for there. So timeline as far as like doing actual trail work for rework or fixing a system, that might be a few months out or even maybe next winter, because I think some species go dormant, so we can actually do a lot of work in the winter and fall. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, for right now, we're just doing all kind of the legwork, I guess. So for that timeline, and we can stay in touch monthly, or just when we have an update, whatever makes sense for everyone on the committee here. So yeah.
Well, and we can stay in touch too, Scott, and then
Sure.
I can give them updates too without them having to come to commission meetings on the
I love
regular.
this. What are you talking about?
Just a quick question for the commission. So seems like going with the natural heritage, seeing what we have from 2021, 2022 that we can pull through, and then what we need to re-engage with, what we need to start afresh on is probably the next step for me.
Yeah.
Does the commission want to move forward? And I think probably it makes sense to do, our $19,000 seems like we should probably start using that funding for the permitting side of things. And then, or what does the commission think?
I guess it depends on how much of the permitting you guys think you can handle in-house versus what might need to be hired out. My initial thinking was that money could buy lumber to actually build those bridges and help to get some of that stuff like done and cleaned up, especially the one that is there but in bad repair. There will be some permitting associated with those. We'd have to check with Natural Heritage to find out if that itself is a Natural Heritage discussion or if that's just a Concom permit.
Right.
But that was my initial thinking for some of the funds.
Okay.
Also, if we had people to build stuff, that we could probably get a long ways with that money just on materials.
Right. The initial thinking, I think, with that funding was that an outside consultant would be hired to do the delineation. Do you want NEMBA to see if they can find a way to do the delineation in-house, a wetland of the parcel?
I think some of those specifics are worth discussing. I don't know if there's, I mean, we've done our own delineations before. Yeah, we have done that. And there may be other folks that overlap between having those skills and being part of the organization that would be willing to donate. So I think, I'd leave that to you a little bit to explore what options there might be.
Yeah, and so back to the NEMBA whole thing, we're just a small chapter, but regionally we do have, a lot of resources to pull from. So I'm not super familiar, you might be able to help me here, Ben, but we might even have someone that can come out and do a delineation like you're talking about within our organization as a third party. So
great.
There's a lot of networking there.
I'd say typically it's more efficient for in-house to do that stuff for us. We're, like you said, we're much better facilitated to do the organizing, to raising funds and stuff like that.
Yeah. So maybe a parallel to the MOU process, another good thing would be to just kind of take stock of what some of those tasks are, and then like if it's stuff that you can handle in-house, or if it's something that we would need to work together to figure out how to fund and then figure out what to allocate that 19,000 to.
Yep.
Yeah.
So other than natural heritage, as well as a delineation of the resource areas on the parcel, are there other pieces of the permitting side of things that the commission can think of?
Certainly we need some kind of application for the bridge work.
Yep.
And we wanted that to happen sooner than some of the other trail work. And that's obviously a resource area.
Right. And whether or not this bridge needs a full rebuild too is a question. It's
Might
pretty,
have good bones,
it's pretty soft when you jump on it, but that doesn't necessarily.
Yeah. We need a new one.
It may not need a permit. It may just be replacing lumber. So
Telephone poles, isn't it? I think that's what
I haven't gotten under it.
That's what I recall.
If it needs to get replaced, does it have to get a new permit for?
probably it depends a little bit on how it's built and what kind of ground disturbance you would have. If there's ground disturbance, then yes. If it doesn't require ground disturbance, we'd have to talk about it a little more, but it may or may not, I think.
It's a large span, so yeah probably does.
And that's probably where some of your natural heritage species of concern are going to be found too.
I don't know. Yeah, we.
As a guess.
I really don't know
Yeah.
what's up there.
I think it's more than Mount Tom species
Okay.
that come down.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. So any other thoughts from the commission?
I was wondering if in the meantime, while this is all getting underway, all of what's been said sounds great, but I was just wondering if in the meantime it would make any sense for us as the city to go up and put up any signs near the places where the trail work has been done that say we are in the process of redoing this trail system, please stop building, or something to that effect, because there are sensitive or endangered areas or something along those lines.
If you want to be involved, contact Conservation Commission.
Yeah.
Or NEMBA.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
I think it might not hurt to suggest that there's something more formal in the works and ask people. I do think, as Garrett said, and Scott was saying as well, the more people you get out there as legitimate users on a trail that's well maintained and easy for people to access, the more it's going to self-police in terms of activities that are unsanctioned or unwanted. So I think we won't make as much headway as we really want to until we get to that point. But it can't hurt to let people know that something bigger is in the works, I don't think.
Well, it could also get people excited to be involved.
Right.
Yeah.
No. And please add NEMBA to that. And we actually can provide you with a QR code for our local chapter. So if people wanted to join, we actually do get a kickback for people joining our chapter. The chapter money comes to us, and that obviously helps fund things like this. So yeah, we could help you and would send you some marketing material to put on that sign. So yeah.
Yeah, we can make some of those signs.
Dan, you were going to say something else?
I was just gonna say, like, I heard at least one person got seriously injured up on some of the new illegal trails within the last year or something like that, which I don't know if the commission had heard about it at all, but anyway, I'd like to get it under control as fast as possible, because I think what I've heard talking to people that I know, some of those trails, like, there's not a lot of warning, there's weird, structures, things built on them where you can't really see what's happening. And so at least one person has gone off it and ended up in the hospital. So it'd be great to get things under control, like, as quickly as we can.
Yeah.
Signage will go a long way in preventing any injuries. I mean, official signage giving designation for trail status as far as its difficulty, its usage for mountain bike specific or for multi-use, will go a really long way in protecting the trail users.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And Stephen, I wonder if I could meet you out there at some point to take a look at what you see as kind of the main route as it is, because I do think maybe having a current boots on the ground, like what the trail system is right now, could be to have a map of that, a really working map of that we could even have as public information on our website for the meantime, while of course informing the public that that's a work in progress.
And
Yeah, I'd be happy to have anybody that wants to join me out here. I'm available.
And Ava, I mean, most of these guys probably are riding with GPS, so they probably already have a
lot of
pretty good
GPS
geo-referenced
Yeah.
map.
Right.
I think we've tried at least 2 other times to develop a map from GPS, and at least in the ages ago, like, the GPS accuracy was really poor especially with the pine canopy, so Rich LeBombard brought tracks and nothing. They were like 100 feet off from each other, like, it was really bad, like basically unusable, but it might be better now.
It's definitely gotten better now. You can see, it's neat.
Yeah.
I believe all the trails that are currently in use are on trail forks.
Garrett.
Just as a quick sidebar, I've been attending a couple of OpenStreetMap, the people that generate a lot of the map coverages that all trails and commercial vendors use. And they're in the middle of trying to, it's an interesting thing that they're very open source, so they don't want to take tracks off their maps, but they're trying to get a handle on what things are approved and official, so that that's obvious from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you bring up a great point, because NEMDA also does that, so we can actually remove tracks from maps that, that aren't, sanctioned. So when we go through and actually build and formalize a system, if there's something that pops up, we can remove them. We can go in and talk to those companies and say, hey, we're the governing body, or like the, you know, working with the conservation committee in this area, and we're telling you from us that that shouldn't be there. So please remove it. So we can do all that too. So with this new age technology, we're right there on top.
And the big thing about that is all of these trails. I mean, we've a lot of people have said illegal trail building. 100% of the trail systems out there currently are illegally built. They were illegally built 30 years ago. They're illegally built 10 years ago. They're illegally built 2 years ago. So what we have to do, what NIMBA would do, what a local organization would do, is facilitate the structure of the trails, making sure that, you know, the right trails are in use, shutting down old ones, working with the Conservation Commission, working with the Heritage, to make sure that we have a system that works, is manageable, and is safe. Mostly using the existing stuff, and if we need to, again, build, if NIMBA needs to come in and build some more accessible trails, or do any kind of connections or anything like that, that would be amazing.
I will say there is also a possibility down the line to apply. The city has received a lot of mass trails grants in the past, and I do think, you know, it's a particular moment in time right in the middle of the pandemic when this grant was not received, but those are for some larger amounts. So perhaps down the line, certainly not with this year's grant cycle, but it's you know, and there are other grants as well, but that would be the main one that's on the table. I'm wondering if NEMBA could send me a version of an MOU that you have with a different community, and I can adapt that.
Yeah, it's easy.
And that would be with the Conservation Commission, right, as the acting body, or with the city, and
Either, yeah. I'm not sure if it probably would be the city. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we would just be guessing.
Yeah, ask around.
I'll ask around.
Allison or
Yeah.
others and see what you can find out about how that would be.
And we learned previously that it doesn't matter if it's an MOU or an MOA. We learned that with 385. Just throwing it out here, just something I was thinking about around the enforcement piece of it and keeping people. So there isn't a CR on this property right now. Would there be any, say, I still feel new enough to this, I feel, you know, would there be any reason to try to get another conservation organization involved to hold a CR to help out from an enforcement side of things? I know that land trusts are required to check up.
I think most of us are really leery about taking on new responsibilities.
Yeah, so you've got a lot on your plate.
I'm not sure, you know, they might check once a year.
Right.
And they're gonna come after you as the owners.
Sure.
As opposed to necessarily users.
Yeah.
We also have belt and suspenders in the conservation community, so it's never a bad thing, you know, in some sense. But it's easier, or give you a whole lot of extra help.
I think at this point, probably not necessary to explore.
Great.
Al, were you trying to say something?
No.
All right, great. I think we've got a plan. Thank you very much for
Yeah.
coming in.
No, thanks for having
I'm
us.
excited about
Appreciate
this.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Great.
Yeah.
So I'll be in touch with
Thank you.
as I develop a list of the next steps. And I'll start the process going with natural heritage as well.
Yeah. And I know Hyde said he's out there. I'm available too. So if you want to go for a ride or something.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
I did mention at the beginning of the meeting, I personally have a hard stop at 7:45. And that doesn't mean the meeting needs to stop, but is there anything else crucial that we should jump ahead to? I feel like we're maybe not quite gonna make our 7:45.
5-second for item.
I think perhaps it's worth it to, we'll come back to the open projects if the commission's willing to take some things out of order.
Yep.
I think maybe some of the general business items could be useful to attend to.
Sounds good.
Okay. So if we start with C, this was just something we wanted to run by you, Commissioner Busa, because the rest of the commission saw this
Okay.
at the December meeting, that Governor Maura Healey passed an economic development
Yep.
bill that extended all permits by 2 years. So the commission discussed at the December meeting whether or not to reissue permits for every open project. And the commission decided not to. We posted a link to the text of the bill and like a note basically that all permit applications that they've been extended. We updated them in our files. They're updated on your agenda. You'll now see some of the projects have these crazy expiration dates.
Okay.
But as a benefit, you guys will never have to be voting to issue extensions for quite some time. So
Perfect.
that's great.
I love it.
Okay.
Good
So,
choice.
okay, awesome. All right. So we're not going to send any kind of letter out. We're just going to assume that it's on every applications. It's on every projects.
Yep.
Great. Okay. All right. Then, trail renovation at Mutters Field. We have Garrett here to speak to that. Do you want to introduce it? I can pull up. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is, you probably all have, I hope, walked Mutters Field. When the trail was built, Massive Fork, that there were signs of indigenous artifacts. And that's why the trail was elevated, because we couldn't do any excavation. Unfortunately, this happened over Fish and Wildlife Service Trail to Woody Bridge Road. Everything's rotting. So we're trying to get ahead of the game and put in a more permanent edging without having to have the whole trail fall apart and having to like literally rebuild the whole thing. So that's one piece of it. And I don't think that there's any matter of regulatory concern on the edging side. The other thing that needs to be done is the crossing of what might be Brickyard Brook. Any question of like which?
Yeah.
That it was always a little problematic in terms of there's 2 buried culverts that have failed and it's getting scoured down below them. It's not a major threat to the banks at this point, but it eventually will be an issue. So the thought is to replace this bridge with a metal bridge similar to the one at Pomeroy Meadow. And that would basically keep the level of the grade of the trail consistent. We might need to do some excavation to bury the cross members, the ends of the bridge. And I don't know if you have the rendering of the bridge.
Yeah.
And I've checked, and it is acceptable for ADA standards to have half-inch or less gap running across the trail. We put in 2 railings so that if you're in a wheelchair, you have some support there. So those are the first 2 components. The last component, Tom Hausenhauser was suggesting that as long as we're redoing the actual physical crossing of the trail, that it would be expedient to get rid of those culverts, restore the natural stream flow, and yeah. So yeah, it's scouring, I think, on this side of it. So that would both be better for the stream, and it would also get rid of this kind of odd situation. And the other issue that on the short stretch of stone dust trail between the paved switchbacks and the bridge, there's no edging on that. So there has been a couple of really minor washouts that are eventually going to end up in the street. So we're going for Mass Trails grant this year, not next. And we do need to get permission from the conservation restriction holders to do this. And we will be coming back to you for actual permitting. That's that, I think.
Okay. So I thought it could be, if the commission wants to review the CR in the process, the CR is also printed out, but I can pull it up on the screen. So the commission is the holder of the conservation restriction on this parcel. And I think that was acquired in 2015?
Yeah.
2013?
Just as the conservation restriction was written to accommodate the trail system.
Yeah, and there wouldn't be any change to use here.
Correct.
So I personally don't feel like we would need to review the restriction.
Okay.
To authorize this. Yeah. That sounds great. It may be less of an issue because you have the side rails on the trail, but one thing I would note is with a bridge like that and having a stone dust trail leading up to it, it can be tricky to maintain those joints where the two meet to keep ADA. But I have a feeling that having the rails on it may actually help your case there, because you probably keep a more stable level of stone dust than if it were just tied into the grades. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, so the actual bridge won't have stone dust on it.
Right, but just that place where the bridge material meets the path, that can be a point where you lose your ADA, because you can get a little bit of a lip there.
Yeah. Well, so the idea is the assemblage of there's gravel and then stone dust, and then more contracted stone dust. So the whole thing is a sandwich that's probably about 5 inches. So the idea is to get the planking on the bridge at the same level as but I do understand, that it's actually the place that we do the most maintenance. So if there are issues like that.
Yeah. No, I think this sounds like a great plan.
I hadn't thought about it at the time, but one of my favorite rail trails is the Cotton Valley Rail Trail, which it's still railroad rails with stone dust infilled in between.
Yeah.
So there's a railroad club that still uses it for rail cars, but then most of the time it's biking and running, and it's this just with railroad rails instead of wood on the side. Sure, that would cost a fortune, but it's already there.
The reason we did all 3 of these bridges now, Old Trolley Line, Pomeroy here, is the maintenance should be like almost nothing. The Old Trolley Line's the oldest one, and it's just 2x4s, and they're not pressure treated or anything, and nothing's rotted out, which is it's not complicated. And it's cheap and it seems to work.
Yeah. Right. So do we know whose signature we actually need on here?
That is such a great question. Have you signed anything as a CR holder in the past? Is it typically?
We have collectively.
You have
signed for a CR, I think, right? I believe. I mean, the CR holder is the Conservation Commission, right? Not just the city. So.
Yeah, I mean, I do think with that MOU with 385, I mean, I think like in the acquisition of a new CR, like that would be something that the mayor would sign, but I'm not sure in this circumstance.
I kind of doubt they're gonna, they're a whole lot. I think if the chair signs it, and if they, we're hopefully gonna get it in next week, and if they look at that and go, you get back.
Okay, I could also send the e-signature authorization.
Yeah.
Which has all of the commissioners' signatures on it, if you'd like to attach that.
Do you want me or all of us to sign this since we're here now? And if you need to reprint and have somebody else sign it?
I'll wait to a motion
Got it.
to authorize the chair
Yeah.
to sign this. I move to allow the Conservation Commission Chair to sign this document as CR holder, as a representative CR holder, which is the Conservation Commission.
All those in favor, Butchick?
Aye.
August? Weeks?
Aye.
Ryan? You're muted, Ryan.
Aye, yep.
Aye.
Motion carries. So go ahead and sign.
Yeah, sounds great.
Thank you very much. Especially given the few minutes that I've left.
Jared, I will want a signed copy of that for my record, so if you're willing to stick around till the end of the meeting, I can scan it and then give you the hard copy. Yeah.
All right, if I excuse myself.
Yeah.
Dan, can you please take over?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Busa.
Safe drive.
Thank you. Yes. Nice to meet you. Thanks, you too.
Everyone. All right, what's next?
All right, let's go back to order, I think.
Sounds good.
So, we're going down active projects. The first one I have an update for you is 6973 Loudville.
What number is that?
That is, I believe it's H. Is it H?
Yep.
Yep, it's H. Okay, so a couple updates from them. I did do 2 site visits since we last spoke there. The first one was in response to a comment from the HOA president, which says, "We remain concerned about the stability of the slope where the secondary basin is located." So this is not the one that we're requiring to be, well, that will likely require to have the gravel removed out of. This is the secondary basin. So we'll show some images of that in a second. Alongside Building 14, Stepler Circle, Craig recently installed a fence along Building 14 to prevent people from falling down that slope. During the installation, the fence builder warned us about the stability of the slope. He warned us to keep a close eye on it to see if it begins to recede. Our feeling is that more should be done to stabilize that slope, i.e. boulders. So that was my first site visit, and I'll show the images from it. So this is the basin. This is the aforementioned basin. So this is unit 14 right here. And then this is the basin. And I imagine this is the fence that the fence builder built. So it is quite a steep slope. I'm not, but it's fully grown in, right? Like that layer of grass is thick. So I'm not sure what the commission's, I guess I defer. I wonder what you like. My initial guess with this is that this is a non-jurisdictional issue. Like the stability it's not likely to erode with a storm event. I mean, I guess it could if it was a really significant one.
Yeah. Like in the kind of coming into the springtime, if there's rainfall with soil freezing and thawing, it could, it could start moving a little bit, like the steep slopes at the site was one thing that was a concern that we had, like going all the way back to the beginning of this, seeing this project for application. So yeah, I mean, we kind of want it to be stable also.
Right.
Do we have like an as-built a record survey of this area?
We don't have an as-built yet because they haven't requested a certificate of compliance.
Okay.
I could request an as-built now.
Yep.
If you'd like.
I mean, I guess what I'm wondering is if this, because we, last time we did a site visit with a big, at least the last time I was on a site visit, and I think we talked about it subsequently, we thought that maybe there were some differences in how grades were constructed and how they were proposed, So
Right.
I'm wondering, I don't remember if this is one of the areas in particular, but it is a very steep slope.
Yes,
um,
certainly.
You know, and just by looking at it by eyeball, it looks steeper than I would have thought it would be, on the drawings or whatever. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I can go ahead and request an as-built from
yeah,
Gonzalez, and I can also, I mean, they'll have to give us one before when they submit a request for certificate of compliance anyway, so.
mhm, yeah. And even, or just, that almost looks like right there, but that difference in vegetation there.
Yeah. I don't recall exactly what this was. I think it was maybe a bit of a hole.
Does look like a bit of a hole. There's something moving a little bit already,
Yeah,
but I don't know, it's hard to say.
right. I mean, I think there was some disturbance when they built the fence, right? Like you can see it's kind of bare around the fence.
Yep. Yeah, okay. I mean, it's like, I think it's a concern for us in addition to the homeowners,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yep.
So I'll request an as-built
I think that makes sense.
of the whole property.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll need one at some point.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So that was the first time I was out on the site, and then I received a request from the developer to remove the silt fencing. So they were requesting confirmation that the site was stable. And so I went back out and did another site visit, and I can show my images from that. So there's that big one. So a lot of the grass is grown in, but there were some bare patches. I noticed them in a couple locations. You'll see them as we sort of make our way around the site. I always feel like it's a little hard to tell if a site is stable when the ground's frozen, because it's like it seems solid, but if there's not grass there, then there's no grass there. But this area was lacking like dense grass vegetation. This area by the silt fence.
Oh, it's pretty bare there.
Mhm.
But the straw wattles are still in place?
Some of them are. I mean, you can see here the straw wattles are
Broken down pretty good.
Yeah. I will say it's been a long time since I received a stormwater report on this property, which could be something else that I asked for along with the as-built.
Yeah.
We should
We
still
tell
be-
them they could stop reporting?
we told them they could. That's a good question. Does anyone remember? It would have been before me.
That would not be the type of thing I would remember in general.
I don't think that, I don't recall telling them they could stop reporting.
I know that you paused reporting last winter. I saw that somewhere in the. Don't believe though that it was stopped.
I mean, I guess I'd be okay with removing silt fence down gradient from areas that are stable and leaving it in areas where there's still bare soils or like inadequate vegetation establishment. In areas where there might need to be more disturbance in the future, I guess if they do need to disturb it, then we'll ask for more silt fence to be put in.
Right.
Well, and that's where I was hoping you were going to go. Can you go back there? Like behind some of those houses, that is where the HOA was concerned about some of the steepness of the slopes. So again, like the as-builts would maybe help, because if some of the, I mean, I don't know if they're really showing up in these pictures, but there are some spots where it's really, really steep behind those houses, like kind of sudden drop off, and that the silt fencing is kind of I don't know if it's the only thing that's keeping it from experiencing a lot of erosion right now, but I think it would be helpful to look at the as-built to put that to rest before we tell them they can take it down in those really, really steep places.
That makes sense.
So where the erosion control is that where they were putting the signs? They had like pink rebar or something. Didn't we have them put up some kind of monuments?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Was it along where the erosion control is? And that's why because that area was susceptible?
Were they signs that said like wetland area, do not disturb?
I think it's just like a piece of rebar with like a pink cap or something. I can't remember. I don't
Can
remember.
you zoom in on one of those pink ones there?
Yeah, I think these are posts. They look like posts.
Is that it? The rebar with a
yeah, I mean, yeah, this is rebar with a pink cap. So that's the edge of was that the limit of disturbance or was that the?
I don't remember.
I don't either.
I can figure that out.
I mean, we could just say we'd like to see the as-built before silt fence gets removed. You know,
Yeah.
maybe that's what.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, I mean, it did seem to me premature just based on the fact that there was still some soil exposed in certain locations.
Mhm.
Okay, so we'll request the as-built of the whole site. Excellent. That's all I have on 6973 Loudville. The next one I have is just from 109 Everett. I don't have anything before then.
That's S.
That's S, yep. And as the commission recalls, we moved to quarter inch rain event stormwater reporting until spring or construction resumes, and decided to just have the silt fencing around the piles as sufficient. And Commissioner August requested I go do a site visit before the commission's meeting today just to check up on wind erosion. And when I was out there today, it seemed the ground was pretty frozen and there hadn't been substantial wind erosion. So as long as we don't have a substantial thaw and then dry out and then wind event, I think we should be good.
That's certainly my impression from my frequent drive-bys.
Great. Awesome.
Did you see if any of the winter rye they planted is sprouted at all?
Yeah, I think it might have sprouted in some locations, but it's also there were some weeds there before that. So I think mostly not so much. It really was like a week too late.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have on open projects.
So just out of curiosity, like let's say there was a big thaw and then the wind picked up, what would be our next move? Hypothetically, or am I overthinking this?
Make them think about something else, I guess. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think the commission could consider, the commission was considering asking them to cover them, right? Mm-hmm. Which would be costly and maybe not that effective, but maybe if we were thinking about it for a short period of time, like a month of covering them with tarps.
Yep.
Before the growing season. But also hopefully they'll be, moving to do some construction rapidly.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Your agenda is wrong about the which minutes, but I do have the minutes for you so it's the December 16th minutes. Commissioner August reviewed them, so the version that's on the table is with Commissioner August's edits. Here.
Any
Were
comments?
there any significant edits, Commissioner August?
Nope.
All right. So this is December 16th. December 16th, and so are these the only ones?
Those are the only minutes, yeah.
Okay. So no comments on the minutes?
They looked fine to me, but
Sounds good.
yeah.
So I'll move that we accept the December 16th minutes with the edits provided by Commissioner August.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All right, roll call vote. Commissioner, whose last name I've already forgotten.
Laura.
Commissioner Laura. Oh, that's right. You're
I'm not
voting
voting
today. I'm
today.
sorry. I'm already messing up. I wasn't paying attention earlier. Commissioner August.
Aye.
Commissioner Weeks.
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Sorry for the confusion, everyone.
You're doing great.
There.
Okay, the ordinance is coming. So we have a draft of the regulations that we're pretty pleased with. So now we're going back to the actual ordinance, which is there's going to be like an ordinance document that'll be within the city's ordinance that'll reference the regulations. That's the much more detailed document. So the more detailed document, we have a draft soon to be shared with you once we have the ordinance ready to go.
Okay.
But yeah, the ordinance hasn't been touched since the spring. So there's some bringing it back into alignment with the regulations to be done, and the working group will have to be at least one more time to align them. But that's the wetlands bylaw update I have for you.
Okay.
But
Could we possibly get the regulations sooner than later? Because I think it's going to take me a while to read through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I think the order that we discussed at our last working group meeting was that we'd give the planning director, Allison Manuel, an opportunity to do a full review, and then and basically flag if there's anything that we should change because it's out of accordance with other systems in the city. And then it would get sent to you all. And probably I'll share it with you. I mean, I think it's a little bit up to how the commissioners want to do it. There's a couple different ways we can go about it. I can share it with you, and then you can all reply, not reply all, with your own responses to me. And I can aggregate all of those. Another option we discussed was maybe small group. I know the working group really benefited from having a lot of lively discussion about the document as we built it. So if the commissioners, we could meet in two small groups, like to discuss it and review it after you've all had an opportunity to spend some time with it. So those are options.
Yeah, I just personally, I think that latter approach would be preferable. Again, speaking just for me, and that's simply because I'm sure there's material in there which is, for lack of a better expression, boilerplate and doesn't need close review. And then there's other things where, okay, this is the sort of stuff that we need to pay close attention to. And if I'm just reviewing it on my own, I'll miss that.
Totally. Right.
So I think the small group
It's a good
approach
approach.
would work better for me.
Yeah, that's great to know. And I can also sit down with commissioners individually. And there will be, ample time for public review as well. Once we have a more finalized draft, it's going to go to all the other departments, has to make its way through with the city's attorney, all the other department heads, etc. Yeah.
Eva, I don't know if this is asking for too much hand-holding, but I wonder, given what Commissioner Weeks just said, if it's possible to have the boilerplate stuff be one color and have the stuff that y'all have really focused on crafting be more delineated in another color or some other way that makes us pay more attention to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I could certainly give you guys kind of an annotated copy.
I think that would be great.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So soon. The next one I have under general business after Mothersfield is so the bike path is getting some repair work done. DPW is contracting with BHB to do some bike path repair work. And that work is going to be covered by category 3 and category 2 of the bundled NOI for that the DPW has with the Concom, because they will be doing some work in Riverfront and in buffer zone. It'll all be within the path of the actual bike path itself, except there is going to be some tree removal along the way. So I can pull up the plans if you guys would like to see them. They're going to be removing.
When you say bike path, you mean rail trail?
Yeah, I mean the rail trail. Yep. And it's sort of spot repairs along the whole thing, which makes it kind of it's a long linear project. I can pull it up. My understanding is that these are covered. The only last piece is have a call out to natural heritage, because it does go through some polygons. So DPW does not have a lot of experience working with natural heritage. So I'm engaging with them.
Between the 2 entrances to Old Trolley Line, there's an accidental little pond there. I've seen frogs in, and it's got cattails growing up now. It's cute.
Is it jurisdictional?
I would never been there.
Yes. So I think these are the natural heritage excerpts, but I'm not sure if I have the full.
Did you send us?
It's linked in the ongoing file.
Okay.
Yeah, here we go. Okay, so a lot of it is there's like these different categories. A lot of it is like spot repair. Some of it is what they call like full trench repair. They're going to be doing root shaving, roof barriers. They're going to be removing I think 31 trees along the bike path. A lot of those, many of those are hazard trees, or they're just trees where the roots are pushing up the path. So that is the main.
Where roots are pushing
up the path. Yeah. So where there's like over root systems. Yeah, it's these different things. So minor crack repair, asphalt repair, full depth trench repair. So that's where they like remove the bike path and remove what's underneath it. Tree removal, root barrier. I did have a meeting with VHB and DPW, and DPW and I were on the same page that as much as they could leave stumps and root systems when the roots are not actively pushing up the path, but when they just need to do tree removal, particularly for hazardous trees, as much as they can relieve the stumps. DPW likes that idea because it saves them money. And we like that idea because it holds the ground together. But I just wanted to update you guys on that, that's happening, and that you'll see them working in resource areas or really close to resource areas, but all within the bike path corridor.
Yeah, the nice thing about no ground disturbance too is the lower chance of spreading Japanese knotweed everywhere.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, invasive management. And yeah, I'm working with them to have, they'll have silt fencing and straw wattles along their limited disturbance as well.
Seems to make sense to me. Seems to be the kind of thing that the bundled order of conditions is intended for. Yep.
Is there anything in the order of conditions that speaks to invasive species like knotweed spreading?
Probably not.
Probably not. And I will say my initial conversations with DPW, it seems like a lot of invasive species, preventing invasive species management is about like cleaning equipment and things like that. And there's definitely some resistance to adding extra work and time from that side of things.
Yeah, we talked about that at the last meeting about having somebody in the city who specializes in invasive species. But
yeah,
in the meantime.
Yeah, I can pull it. Do you want to take a look at the bundled NOI? Commissioner Carr?
Well, if you don't think it's in there, then whether it's in there or not, I'm just worried about spreading knotweed everywhere. So if there's a way to influence that, I'm interested in looking at it. If there's no way to influence it, then it's a moot point.
Section, love field, the elevated section, that's really infested.
Yeah. And then if you go into Northampton, like north of the Route 10 bridge crossing, it's horrifying the knotweed up in that.
There's so much knotweed.
It's like you got like a 2-foot wide corridor, like down in the middle of Somerset.
I was just thinking there might be a couple of places where you ask them to do that rather than tell them every time they go out, they have to.
Right.
Yeah.
Asking them to do some equipment cleaning.
Oh yeah, if they're working in that area, it didn't really look like they were working in that area from what I could see, but I'm not exactly sure.
So it'd be 6, right? Because it's up there. Is that what you're thinking of up closer?
Yeah.
Lovefield Street is, let's see. Yeah, Lovefield Street's like here, because this is Clap, right?
Yep.
So 6, let's look at 6. Here's Lovefield.
So if it's a bundled order, we can't ask about invasive species. Is that a little separate
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna do any removal as part of this.
identification?
I don't think.
The conditions are already conditioned.
That,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
What is the time frame for this work? Are they gonna do it this winter?
That's a great question.
In which case, there's probably not a lot to identify.
Yeah, I definitely learned that in a meeting. Let me see if I have it in here.
So what's the yellow? What are the different?
Yeah. They're the different priority of repairs, but they correspond to, I don't think they necessarily correspond to what kind of repair, but they do down here. Here we go. So we can take a look. We were looking at 70. You were looking at like 76 through 80, roughly. So we can see down here, 76 and 8 through 80. So 76, root cracks multiple, full depth trench repair, root pruning, root barrier. How they kind of jump around. 80, root cracks. 82, it looks 83. It looks like they're removing a maple. See where that is? 83 is over here, closer to the Ferry Street intersection. I think most of the repairs where we were looking at are not tree removal. And I know that they're doing no tree removal in natural heritage, which should make it, I think, easier because they're just staying within the bike path and the rail trail and the areas on either side of it.
Yeah. I think this is the bad knotweed stress, and doesn't look like you're doing a ton of work in that area. So I don't know. I guess it's fine. They can operate under the bundled order if they maybe if you were able to go out with them and like be like, see this plant, don't like spread it anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is the deep it's
They don't want to take it home with them because their home yard will be.
yeah, that's true. It's a contractor doing the work, right? Not DPW.
I think a contractor is going to do the work. Yeah. Okay. I think so. I mean, VHB is doing the design work, but I think they're going to be contractors on as well.
Do we, is there a strategy for, I think, because you had mentioned last time, I thought maybe if memory serves me, Ava, something about talking to the city about invasive species, and is there like, I guess I'm just trying to think, it seems like that's more and more and more becoming an issue. I guess I'm just wondering who would be the appropriate people or peoples or committees within the city to try to influence the city to actually take that a little bit more seriously.
Yeah.
Counselor Zaret, maybe the Bees Committee, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, can I share this with the Bees Committee? Because
Yeah.
invasives
I will, thank
control
you.
along the rail trail is something that, you know, the committee has started to focus on. And
Right.
so I'm sure people, you know, would be very interested in this, and, you know, maybe out of that will come a discussion and some discussing this and championing some of these ideas of don't spread, be careful, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Feel free to share this with the Bees Committee, the Bees Committee. Yeah, I mean, I think, Sarah, I have on my, or Commissioner Carr, I have on my to-do list to reach out to, you said Chickpea, right? Would be the, to
Oh,
see.
right. Yeah.
And I just hadn't had an opportunity yet. So I think, trying to get a sense of if other communities have a person on staff who does invasive species management.
Okay.
I do think, from my sense of it, is that we're going to get farther thinking about invasive species management within our conservation areas, within our CRs, if that becomes a priority of the Concom, to really attack it from that perspective. Working with the DPW on invasive species management along just the DPW maintained areas of the city definitely seems like a harder battle. And I just am noting that myself as a new staff person does not have a lot of sway with the DPW.
That makes sense. And it also makes sense that they don't need more work on their plate.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's why I was thinking it might make sense to have it be a whole different person or area of the city that would address this, because it's not fair to just ask DPW to take it on somehow.
Right. And I think the Bees Committee is trying to fill in a little bit here too, though they're
We are.
filling in with volunteer labor.
Well, yeah, and we're sort of overwhelmed by opportunity and underwhelmed by resources.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
I do have one question coming back to this, actually.
Yeah.
And that is, it's been a long time since we've looked at the bundled order, but does it allow for work by a contractor? When I think about the bundled order, I just think about like DPW operations, you know, I don't think about like contract work. And it may not explicitly state that
Yeah.
one way or another, but
I think, hold on, maybe it'll be up here too. That's a really good question.
it probably doesn't say.
Yeah, it probably doesn't. I know that we've checked before. Yeah, the fact that it's like any location in the city can be covered, like, because we checked that about private land versus public land. That came up with the Lorenz Zero Glendale APR piece of it. But I don't know about about contractors doing the work. I actually don't even know who they're going to have do the work.
Yep.
I can figure that out.
Okay. Yeah, at least from what I can think of now, where they have asked for, if it is a contractor to do the work, that it would be one. I could be wrong in that, but maybe it doesn't matter. Like maybe it's just not, maybe that who was doing the work didn't even ever enter into this conversation.
The DPW done repair work on any of the water system, like on the dam, or has that always been a separate filing that's not covered under the bundled? Because I can't imagine they would do that in-house, that was larger stuff.
like the
spillway or anything like that.
I don't think they've done any.
They haven't done any work on.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, but I think that's being covered by the project that, oh gosh, who's the consultant who's taking it on? who's working on.
Ferry Street, is that what you're talking about? Or,
It was a distinct project. Let me,
okay,
it wasn't Ferry Street per se. It was,
Anyway, all
I
right.
don't see it on
yeah,
here.
I can get an answer to that too. Because if the bundle NOI doesn't cover contractor work, then I imagine this would probably be an
Yep. Okay.
RDA.
Sorry. It's
Or
our,
an, again,
it's our
R.
place. Because
Oh,
they're gonna be working on the dam and some of the,
yes,
those
right.
areas
Yeah, that's
immediately
true.
adjacent.
Oh, that's
Or-
right. I forgot all about that.
Or an NOI. Probably maybe an NOI. Tree removal, this measure.
Maybe an RDA. If it's within.
Yeah.
I guess if it's in Riverfront. Julie might have differently.
Okay, well, yeah.
Yeah.
First, I'll figure that out.
Yep.
But that's a great call. Thank you, Commissioner Butcher.
Yep.
Figure that out. I believe that's all I have for you. I'm gonna note that, like I noted last time, there are courses. MACC has posted their courses. Commissioner Carr sent me her invoice for some of those courses, and that MACC also announced their spring conference on March 1st.
Okay,
Which you could come to it with me. It's gonna be in Worcester.
Is that all in person?
I believe their
No more
conferences are all in
hybrid.
person these days. Yep.
Sounds good.
Right.
Anything else?
Actually, the courses are
Oh, the-
online. The
Yes.
conference is in person, but the courses in the meantime are all online.
Yep. That's totally correct.
Yeah, I looked at those. I actually intend to sign up for some.
Excellent. Great. Yeah, you can get those to me when you have a chance. That'd be awesome. And that's all I have for you.
All right. I don't have anything. Motion to adjourn.
I move-
Second.
No, you have to let me make the motion first. I move that we adjourn this meeting of the Conservation Commission.
All right.
Here in person.
Second. Commissioner August.
Yeah.
Commissioner Weeks.
Aye.
Commissioner Carr.
Hi.
Commissioner Ryan.
Aye.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.